I never thought there was anything magical. Demons, ghosts, and spirits all seemed like leftovers from a time when people were afraid of the unknown. The night I used the Ouija board, though, everything changed. What happened to my friends and me shook my sense of what was real. Don't think this is another scary story, because what I'm about to say is true. Before I dive into what happened that night, let me take you back to where it all began. The origins of the Ouija board. The Ouija board, also known as a spirit board or talking board, has a fascinating yet eerie history. In 1891, it was patented by Elijah Bond and later became popularized by William Fuld. Originally marketed as a harmless parlor game, people saw it as a novelty to communicate with the dead. But it wasn't long before tales of its dark side began to appear. The first known case of something going badly wrong happened with a guy named Charles Kennard. Kennard was one of the original owners of the company that made Ouija boards. He thought the board could be used to unlock information from the other side. After using the board frequently, Kennard began having troubling images and hearing voices, whispers that he claimed came from beyond the grave. He became obsessed, refusing to speak to anyone about his experiences, and finally he vanished under strange circumstances. Some say the ghosts took him. Others believe he went mad and lost himself to the unknown. Whatever happened was the first sign that the Ouija board wasn't just a toy. It was a cold October night when my friends, Mia, Dave, and I chose to use the Ouija board. We were at Mia's house, an old Victorian-style home with creaking wooden floors and dim lighting that added to the mood of our little trip. Mia had recently found the board in her attic, left there by a previous renter. Despite never using one, the stories we'd heard made it sound exciting. And besides, we didn't really believe anything would happen. It was just a game, right? We set the board up in her living room, lit a few candles, and turned off the lights. The glowing lights cast strange shadows on the walls as we sat around the board, putting our fingers lightly on the planchette. Mia, ever the brave one, was the first to speak. "Is there anyone here with us?" she inquired, her voice slightly shaking despite her bold tone. At first, nothing happened. We swapped looks, half expecting to burst into laughter. But then, ever so slowly, the planchette began to move. It slid across the board, writing out YES. We all looked at each other, nervous but interested. I remember the air in the room feeling heavy, like something had entered unnoticed. I could hear my beating in my ears, but none of us dared to take our fingers from the planchette. "Who are you?" Dave inquired next, his voice barely above a whisper. Again, the planchette moved. ITSME. Confused, we glanced at each other. "Who is me?" I asked. The planchette spelled out another frightening word, SHADOW. At this point, the room felt ice cold, and the shadows on the walls seemed to move, almost breathing with life. My stomach tightened with unease, but we pressed on, too intrigued or too scared to stop. "Shadow, what do you want?" Mia asked. This time the planchette moved faster, TOPLAY. Suddenly, the light closest to me flickered out, sending part of the room into darkness. My breath caught in my throat. None of us moved. Mia relit the light with shaking hands, and I could see the fear in her eyes. The stress in the air was obvious, like something was watching us, waiting. "Are you a spirit?" I asked, my voice almost cracking. The chilling answer was NO. My heart dropped. "Then what are you?" The board spelled out DARKNESS. That's when Dave snapped. "This is bullshit," he yelled, standing up suddenly. "One of you is transporting it." "Dave, sit down," Mia hissed. "I swear I'm not touching it." I wasn't moving the planchette either, and judging by the look on Mia's face, neither was she. But Dave was done. He stormed out of the room, leaving Mia and me alone with the board. "I don't like this," I whispered. "Let's stop." Mia nodded and began to move her hands to stop the session. But before we could finish, the planchette shot across the board on its own, writing out STAY. The room went dead silent, and I swear I could hear something faint in the distance, like whispers from the walls, from the darkness itself. We quickly ended the session and threw the board back into the attic, but whatever we had contacted that night was still there. After that night, strange things started happening. It began small. Footsteps in the hall when no one was there, lights flashing, things moving from where we had put them. Mia was the first to notice them, but soon I experienced them too. One night, I woke up to the sound of soft whispers. At first I thought it was the wind, but then I realized they were coming from inside my room. It was weak, almost inaudible, but I could make out a few words. Play. Again. Now. I sat up in bed, my heart racing. The room was pitch black except for the faint moonlight coming through the window. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadow moving across the floor, even though nothing in the room could have caused it. I jumped out of bed and turned on the lights, but the shadow was gone. My room was empty. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Over the next few weeks, the problems grew worse. Mia started having intense nightmares, dreams where she was trapped in a dark place, surrounded by ghosts that whispered her name. She'd wake up in a cold sweat, frightened. Dave, who had dismissed the whole thing, started moaning about seeing figures out of the corner of his eye, but when he'd turned to look, they'd disappear. One night, I was at home alone when the power went out. I lit a few lights and tried to stay cool, but then I heard it again. The whispers. This time they were louder and clearer. Come back. We're waiting. Suddenly I felt a cold hand brush against my shoulder. I spun around, but no one was there. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that whatever we had talked with the Ouija board that night had followed us. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was real, and it wanted something from us. Desperate for help, we turned to a ghost investigator, someone who had dealt with Ouija board entities before. He told us that the creature we called was not a ghost, but something darker, something ancient that lived on fear and chaos. According to him, this creature was known as a shadow demon, an evil force that could attach itself to those who used the board. He explained that ending the conversation incorrectly could have allowed the monster to grab onto us. It could only be removed by proper exile. That night, we did a cleaning rite, using sage and holy water, following the investigator's directions to close the door we had opened. As we did, the mood in the room got darker, with whispers changing into deep growls. Shadows danced on the walls, moving in ways that defied logic. But after what felt like an age, the air finally cleared. The shadows faded and the heavy weight lifted. The disruption stopped after that. No more whispers, no more ghosts. It was as if the creature had been pushed back into whatever dark world it came from. But even now, years later, I sometimes feel a chill when I walk past dark corners, a memory of the night we played with forces we didn't understand. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that the Ouija board is not a game. It's a door, and once you open it, you can never be sure what will come through.